town, summer in the city, back of my neck getting dirt and gritty. I don't remember those lyrics. Hello, welcome to Lopez Power Lopez review of Die Hard with a Vengeance. Now you're probably wondering, why am I not reviewing Die Hard 1 or Die Hard 2 or 4, 5? 5 is terrible. Because I just watched the third one. And the third one, I think, is by far, I'm not sure, I'd say it's the best of the sequels and almost as good as the first one, if not as good. It's a really good movie. It was it was the first Die Hard to kind of go away from the Die Hard trend, which is, a person who's had experience in, whether it's the military or the police force, goes to see maybe a family member or is just stopping by. He's the wrong person at the wrong place at the wrong time. Bad guys take over. He knows what he's doing, though, and he's gonna stop the bad guys from doing their plan by whacking them off one by one and saving the hostages in the area. A lot of movies, kind of copy this with Die Hard. Like Die Hard 2, Under Siege, The Rock, Con Air, Speed, even modern movies like Olympus Has Fallen, White House Down. It's the Die Hard story. But with Die Hard with a Vengeance, it's interesting because with Die Hard 4 and 5, well, I actually do kind of like 4, but especially with 5, it didn't really it didn't really feel like Die Hard at all. There's this guy named Renegade Cut, Leon Thomas, and he made this video saying everyone's trying to be Die Hard except Die Hard. In a way, he is very true. It doesn't really feel like Die Hard, even though it's in different location and different style of storytelling, of action storytelling. It doesn't feel like the first 2 and 3. Now, Die Hard 3 was the kind of first one to kind of differ from the direction that 1 and 2 is going. But the thing is about Die Hard 3 is, even though it's a different style of the Die Hard franchise, of the Die Hard movies, it still feels like Die Hard. It still feels like Die Hard. It's still that good old, wisecracking, joke-telling, got, charm and charisma, cop, relatable everyman cop, John McClane. He's the same as he was in the first 2 movies. And I think it's done really well. And he has a sidekick. And now, John McClane, again, another thing this movie does different. In the first 2 movies, John McClane was on his own, and he was facing the situation alone, because he's the person that knows what he's doing. He's stuck in the situation. He's the only one that's got information on the inside, so he kind of he does his own thing and kind of ignores the cops to some degree that are outside dealing with it. But with this movie, he's not alone. He's actually has a friend, a kind of a sidekick that they become friends, Zeus Carver. He's not like a cop, but he's a person that gets tagged along by events, chain of events. And he's like a person who owns a electronic shop or something like that. And he just gets involved with the story without him wanting to. And it's really funny. I think it's because of that it makes it really funny, which other movies I don't think really does that well, of a person who really should not be there. In a way, he's almost more of an everyman than John McClane, because not everyone's a cop, but he's just just a normal dude who owns a shop, and he just gets caught up in all this stuff, and it's really funny to see that. The other 4 and 5 didn't really capture it as well. 4 did it not bad, but not nowhere near as good as the third one did. And the fifth one, okay, in the fourth one, it was like this computer guy who gets caught up in the mix of it. In the fifth one, it's his son. But this movie does it, I think, a little better because it's got really number one, like I said, it makes great comedy when Samuel Jackson's character Zeus Carver gets caught up in all the action because he's a person that really has nothing to do with the situation and just gets involved. And also Samuel Jackson's performance. Samuel Jackson has as much charm and charisma as Bruce Willis, and he's such a great actor. And he has that kind of Pulp Fiction, don't mess with me, man, type of vibe. That I think really works well with Bruce Willis, and they kind of have good screen chemistry together. And it's because Samuel Jackson is one of the best actors of all time. I can't really say that about Justin Lin or whoever played the son in the fifth one. I can't remember his name. But Samuel Jackson, and I don't mean to poop on those movies. I actually really like the fourth one. I'd say it's not quite. I like it better than the second one, but still not. I can't say I like it better than 1 or 3. The fifth one, I actually did like some things about it, but overall I'd say it's the weakest by far. But with the third one, that's why I think that it works better that way, because number one, he's an everyman too. And number two, he's funny and he has as much charisma and charm as Bruce Willis. And both the two of them have really great screen chemistry together. They can't get really on each other's nerves, but at the end of the day, they have to give each other a pat on the back because at the end they really respect each other. This movie again kind of connects with the first movie. This movie kind of ignores the second one, I think, a little bit. You could most definitely go from the first one to the third one. I think that's why this movie's not really numbered 2. It's not Die Hard 3 with a Vengeance. It's just Die Hard with a Vengeance. Unlike Die Hard 2, Die Hard 2, Die Harder. But I think it kind of does ignore. I mean, I guess you could say it's the events of Die Hard 2 still happened, but it kind of ignores the events of the second one. Doesn't really mention it. It mentions the first one throughout a lot of the movie, because the villain is connected to the villain of the first movie, because the Gruber brothers, they're brothers. It's Hans Gruber's older brother, although he does look a lot younger. I mean, older than Alan Rickman, but Alan Rickman is actually 2 years older than him. And that's another thing I want to talk about. I think the reason why the first one, I think, is a little better is because, number one, it's kind of, I like the setting in the first one a little better. Not to say that this one's bad, but I think I like that setting a lot. It's just the one building. But another thing is the villain. Now, I'm not saying that Jeremy Irons does a terrible job. He does, I think, a really good job. I like him better than... He's probably the second best Die Hard villain. He's definitely the best Die Hard villain besides Hans Gruber. He's definitely better than the Thomas Gabriel and Colonel Stewart. I don't even know if the fifth one even had a villain. Kinda, maybe. I don't know. But he's Simon Gruber. I think maybe because his plan is much bigger. But it's not really the plan. His plan is much, I think, much bigger. And I think his evil plan is definitely more what do you call it? Definitely more dangerous. But I think what made Alan Rickman a little better is because he knows he's a terrorist villain, but he does it like in a very classy way. Oh, not he doesn't really do it in an over the top way like a James Bond villain. He is similar to a James Bond villain, Hans Gruber, but Hans Gruber just kind of had this classy kind of corporate villain, 80s villain to him. Whereas Simon Gruber, he has it a little bit, but he you feel that he's more of a you feel that Simon Gruber, I'd say, is more of a terrorist in the sense of, like, let's put it this way. Hans Gruber felt more like he belonged in the mafia. Like, he had that mafia, even though he wasn't really, he had that mafia vibe to him. Whereas Simon Gruber kind of feels like a villain you would see, like a terrorist villain, like a villain you'd see in a James Bond movie. Whereas Han, even though I said he has, I'd say that even though Hans Gruber has more of the style of a James Bond villain, Simon Gruber has more of the motivations of a James Bond villain. Whereas Hans Gruber is more like a subtle mafia type. He's not quite as subtle, I think, as Hans Gruber. I don't think Simon's quite as subtle. But I'm not saying that he's bad. He's definitely very good. Even though he's not subtle, he still has that kind of calmness to him, like when he just like dismantles Samuel L. Jackson's machine gun. He's just kind of just eating an egg, and he's just like here, and then he just like shoots him. He's like, you have the safety on, I mean off, or on, yeah. Anyway, so I like Jeremy Irons. It's a little distracting too because I grew up with The Lion King and he sounds like Scar, especially on the walkie-talkies. But yeah, I mean, even though it's a different style to the first two movies, it still kind of has the feel of it. It feels very familiar. The cops, I think, are done much better in this movie. I think the cops in the first movie were just kind of in the way. They didn't really do jack. Whereas this one, I think, and even in the second movie, the cops are just, and most of the Die Hard movies, they're just, in the first two anyway, they're just kind of in the way, you know, they're trying to they think they're trying to do the real business with the terrorists, and John McClane is just messing things up further. Whereas in this movie, they actually kind of respect what McClane's doing. They actually kind of, even though they took away his badge, they respect what McClane's doing. And McClane, even though in the first movie he's just kind of like, oh, these cops, he's the renegade cowboy. He doesn't really listen to what the cops say in the first movie. In this movie, doesn't seem like the cops are in the way. He lets them do their job, and he helps them with their jobs, and he respects the job they're doing. And in this movie, they respect McClane. So I guess what I'm kind of saying is the cops in this movie, I think, play a better role in contributing to the story because McClane and the cops actually help each other instead of get annoyed with each other. I think is done better in this movie. That's the reason why the cops are done better in this movie, is because they're not annoying. They actually help McClane, and the cops help each other. And I know he helped one cop, the black cop, I forget his name, in the first two movies. In the first movie, he had a cameo in the second movie. But overall, the cops kind of were like annoyed with him. They thought he was just in the way. But in this movie, they just like, no, man. They actually help him get through with the bomb things, and they actually help each other, like, with information, and for example, who the 21st president of the United States is. It's just really interesting. And they also play an important part, and more important part too, because they help the kids get out of the school, and so it's really I think it's done much better in the third movie. The score, I think, is pretty good. It's kind of got an upbeat score to it. It's the normal Die Hard music, with the the ants are marching in tonight music instead of Beethoven's. I don't remember which symphony. If anybody's watching this, they're probably gonna kill me in the comments. I like this almost as much as the first one. I'd say this is definitely, it's probably my, I wouldn't say it's the best Die Hard movie, but in a way I can kind of say it's my favorite. I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain. Even though I don't think it's the best Die Hard movie, I think it's my favorite Die Hard movie. I guess that's kind of how I paraphrase this movie. This is kind of how I explain my opinion of the movie. It's not my, again, I'm just kind of sounding like a broken record. You know what I said. Anyway, I really like this movie. I give it about a 10 out of 10 like the first one. I give it about a 4 out of 4. And I give it an A+. I definitely recommend this movie. Even if, like how I said, even though it ignores kind of the second movie and it connects with the first movie, you can just watch this movie without even knowing about, if you haven't seen any of the Die Hard movies and you're watching this review, just go ahead and watch Die Hard with a Vengeance. I'd say probably the first one is the best one, but this is my favorite one. But you don't need the story of the other movies to enjoy this movie. You could not even see the other two movies and still enjoy this movie. Because even though it connects with the first movie a little bit, it's still kind of its own contained story, and they explain the first movie enough so you can kind of get the drift of this story. So yeah, I recommend it to anybody who loves action movies, Die Hard movies, or likes Bruce Willis movies, or likes Samuel Jackson performances. I really recommend this. It's got great action. They use practical effects like the train crashing scene. There is a little CGI, but it's not overbearing like most action movies today. It's mostly practical, like I said, the train effects and some of the bomb effects, and the fight scenes are great. John McClane always has to fight the muscle, like the big tall guy on the boat. If I had anything negative to say about this movie, I'd say it is a little long, but and also I'd say the ending, I think, could have been done a little cleaner. It was a little I think when they get off of the boat and are rescued from the boat exploding, and how it transitions into the Canada Gold helicopter shootout scene, it kind of feels a little funky there. It kind of goes you think the movie's gonna end, but then it's wait a minute, we have more, and it just doesn't seem that natural. I think that's the only thing about it, is that I wish they would have cleaned that up a little bit, make it a little the transition a little smoother. Maybe not focus so much on the scene where they're maybe, for example, instead of sitting on the docks with the cops, oh, we had a nice day, and it looks like the movie's about to end. Maybe the moment he gets out of the water, he notices on the bottle, and then he's like, wait, I know where he's going. And I know he does that, but that area where it kind of takes a break from the movie, they're just sitting down, and they're like, you had a nice day, man. I mean, they have, you had a rough day, you can't win them all type of thing. You're alive, but if you're alive, that means they lost type of scene. I think if they didn't have that scene, that transition would have seemed a little smoother. But other than that, I really like the movie. I give it a 10 out of 10, 4 out of 4, an A+, great action movie, probably by far the best of the Die Hard sequels, almost as good as the first one. The first one's probably just a smidge better. And I recommend this. It's, like I said, I'd say it's not the best Die Hard movie, but it's not my favorite. It's probably my favorite Die Hard movie. It's not the best one, but it's my favorite one. It's kind of the one I probably seen the most. It's kind of the one I probably quote the most. It's probably the one I kind of remember the most. But overall, I probably admit the first one's better, but this is still my favorite. So yeah, that's my review of Die Hard with a Vengeance. Take care, see you next review, and God bless you.